All right. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Bobby Byrne. I am the Chief Information Officer here at Advocate Health, and I am thrilled to welcome you to our session this morning, which is Who We Are, Women's History Month, celebrating women who tell our stories. I'm very much looking forward to this today. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Department launched this Who We Are series back in September of 22. It's an opportunity for our teammates to celebrate and honor the rich cultural diversity that we have. And one of the ways that we do this is by calling attention to the different groups within our very diverse community. Today is the 9th session, and this is the inaugural Women's History Month event. When I think about this entire topic of who we are and how we find our voice, the Ruth Bader Ginsburg quote comes to me, which is, "Speak your mind, even if your voice shakes." And for somebody who is a strong woman, but who is often betrayed by her shaky voice, especially if I feel particularly strong or committed to a particular topic, I think it is really important that we tell our stories and that we get practice in telling our stories and do it in as often and as effectively as we possibly can. So as we jump in for today, please take a look at the chat. There are just a few housekeeping items in there, and I will turn the microphone over to Jennifer, who will be our facilitator. Jennifer is the Organizational Development Program Manager and somebody that I have really had the pleasure of working with on some women leadership initiatives. So I will hand it to you, Jennifer. Thank you. Enjoy. I am looking forward to this conversation.
Excellent. Thanks, Bobby. And thank all of you who were are able to join on this Thursday morning or Monday morning, not Thursday morning. I was going to say cold Monday morning. So wonderful to see everyone, and thanks for taking the time. I am Jennifer Pecor. I am one of the program managers in our organizational development area. I help run our coaching, our mentoring, and our developmental assessment strategy for the organization. Been here 15 years, so I have had the opportunity to work with many fabulous females during my tenure here at this organization. And today we're just so excited to have just a few of those women on the call today that are going to talk about their story and their importance that all of you play in helping them tell their story as well. So we'll go ahead and kick off and get started. I wanted to also say we are all going to hear a little bit about the origins of Women's History Month. Bobby gave us some great history in her kickoff. And I also wanted just to talk a little bit about, like, how did this begin? Where did Women's History Month get its origin from? And believe it or not, it was just in the 1970s. And I say just because I was born in the 1970s, so it doesn't feel that long ago. Local groups began celebrating Women's History Month. And then that really led to some more notable celebrations that started in California. An education task force got involved. And in 1980, the then president, Jimmy Carter, designated this week of March 8th as the National Women's History Week. And then Congress is actually who expanded it to this whole month of March. And this created a lot of special opportunities. And I love that this is part of the history because I didn't realize it at the time. But in 1989, when I was a junior in high school, my English teacher, her name was Miss Burkett, she actually invited me to Denison University. And during that time, I didn't realize, but it was a part of this celebration of Women's History Month. And who knew when I was there at Denison that Gloria Steinem was the keynote speaker and that she would come to be someone who has set such great history for women and claiming their voice in the United States. So that's a little bit of history. And then each year, Women's History Month actually has a theme. And this year's theme is celebrating women who tell our stories. So once again, we're going to hear from some amazing advocate women leaders that are going to tell their stories. And just keep in mind that when we think about this month, it really is about honoring not only folks that we work with, but think about people outside of our four walls. That after today, we hope you walk away and you feel empowered to be honoring women in our community, women of our past, women who we get to interact with on a daily basis that have helped us come to the table and be who we are. And they may not even be females. There may be, other folks in our lives that have really helped us as women be able to claim our voice. So to get to where we are today, I want to kick us off by introducing and having them introduce themselves. And as I segue over to that, I just wanted to tell all of you my favorite quote is actually from Gloria Steinem. All of these ladies that you're going to hear from here in just a few moments are going to tell all of you their favorite quote as well. So this is my favorite quote from Gloria Steinem. I began to understand that self-esteem isn't everything. It's just that there's nothing without it. And I thought that was really powerful. That starts with that self-regard. It starts with that self-esteem. And the more we understand that, the more powerful we can be. So I'll hand it on over to Anise. I will have you kick us off with introduction, name, title, where are you sitting, city and state, and then your favorite quote.
Thank you, Jen. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon if you're in the Eastern time zone now. My name is Anise Dalla. I'm the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives within the Strategy and Operations Consulting Group. So in my role, I manage the portfolio of projects that are closely aligned with our enterprise strategy and our Midwest report card goals. I've been with the organization for almost 20 years now, and I am based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Jen, it was hard for me to pick just one quote because I am a quote junkie, but I came across one last week that resonated, so I saved it. It's by E.E. Cummings, and it says, "It takes courage to grow up and become who you really are." And he's an American writer, author, and poet. I like that one.
Yeah, I love that. I think we'll hear a lot of that theme of courage today. So thank you for sharing that in your quote. Tracy, we'll go with you next.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Tracy Fuller. I'm a director of inpatient nursing. My oversight is Women's Health Service Line, our professional development nurses in our magnet program for our organization. I have actually been with Advocate Aurora a year and a half, almost 2 years coming up. I moved here from California and I'm originally from Mississippi. I am currently residing in Green Bay, Wisconsin, where it's very cold and a lot of snow, and I don't know how to adjust, but we're doing it. And I have many favorite quotes like Anise, but one that I came across recently is fitting for this, that women belong in all places where decisions are being made. It shouldn't be that women are the exception. And again, Ruth Bader Ginsburg is being brought up, and I think she's very wise. She's a very wise woman. So thank you.
Terry.
Hi, I'm Terry Godar, Executive Director over Population Health Information Services. I've been here a total of 36 years combined. This is my second rodeo with the organization. I lead a couple of different teams that support EPH's ops and clinical programs. I do all things data management, onboarding of claims and clinical data, application support and provisioning, and the Enterprise Master Patient Index. My team is data stewards for. I reside in Dixon, Illinois, and the quote I picked was by Stephen Covey: "I am not a product of my circumstance, I am a product of my decisions."
Love that. Thank you. Thank you. We're all getting lots of awesome quotes today, so we'll make sure that we get those sent out afterwards too. So for everyone who's on the call, you will have an opportunity to get those quotes from all of us. Stephanie, I know Stephanie's coming to us from Atlanta, but I know you don't live in Atlanta, so take it away.
Thanks, Jen. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name's Stephanie Zidek. I'm one of our directors for nursing ed and professional development within the Midwest region. And I just celebrated my 6th year with Advocate Health on Valentine's Day. So a special anniversary about a month ago. My role, I have the great privilege with my colleagues to oversee nursing and clinical education, both programming as well as initiatives throughout Illinois and Wisconsin. I live in the western suburbs of Chicago, so in Elmhurst, Illinois, but as Jen mentioned, I'm coming to you live from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm here all week for a nursing convention, which is really exciting. A little bit warmer, but not as warm as I had hoped, but I guess I escaped some snow and coldness that at least Jen and Tracy have clued me in on. And I'm actually going to share kind of a blast from the past for my quote. This is something I had handwritten on an index card on my college desk that I think still resides somewhere in my, youth bedroom. And it's from Mother Teresa. It's let no one ever come to you without leaving better and happier. And that's really something I've tried to live both when I was younger and carry that on through my career.
Excellent. Okay, well, let's get started. We'll have some time as well towards the end of our time together today where you can ask some questions. So if you have something, hold on to it, and then we'll have you put it in the chat and we can have some dialogue. So we're going to start off with the question of, and this is open game for all of our ladies that are on the panel today. So how did you gain your voice, or how are you continuing to gain your voice as a female leader? So wanted to just start out with how we can help our audience understand some of the things you're doing as a female leader.
Hey, Jen, this is Terry.
Yeah.
I think when I realized what my strengths were, and I really started to embrace what those strengths were, and then I spent all of my time optimizing those and learning that it was okay to be okay at certain things. Yeah. Instead of trying to always know everything and then get discouraged when you don't. For example, like I'm an arranger and I'm an activator. I love to take a bunch of complicated processes, find the best solution, and then let's get started. But in contrast to that, I hate project management. So I always make sure that I capitalize on my peers or my associates or my teammates to make sure that I have them at the table when I'm leading these large scale products. So, and another one is I'm really good at like finding the potential in other people. So I always love to take, my team and we reshuffle them over and over again to make sure that I put them in a situation where they are feeling empowered and that we're building on their strengths as well.
Thanks for sharing, Terry. I think that that's really powerful for a lot of us on the call. And, Terry and I go back to when both of us were at Advocate Physician Partners, and I can say that Terry does that she leans on people that have strengths in different areas. And Anise, I'm pretty sure she said she hates project management. So sorry about that, but the two of you can partner because I'm pretty sure that's probably a strong area for you.
That's right. I'm not going to take it personally. Jen, for me, like Terry, it really starts with identifying what my area of expertise is or where I want to use my voice, right? What's mine to say? Sometimes that starts with data analytics or research or leaning into my past experience. And then once I've formulated with clarity how I want to use my voice, what helps me next is I have a really supportive network of mentors and role models and friends who've made it slightly easier for me to take risks and be confident and be vulnerable when it comes to putting my voice forward. And also just building off of what Terry said, I'm very comfortable like not always having the loudest voice at every table, right? I choose what my strengths are, with who I want to share and when, and that's worked well for me.
Excellent. Stephanie, anything you want to add to that?
So I have a similar style, I feel, to what Anise and a little bit of what Terry shared too. I think, full disclosure, and Jen can attest, I'm still working on gaining my voice, but I definitely feel like in the past year or so, I've been able to lean in a bit more and really connect what is my voice. And I feel I have more of a quieter voice, and that's okay. And a few people have told me that's okay to have a quiet leadership style. And it took some of that to have a light bulb go off. And as we heard, it doesn't always have to be the loudest voice, but if you know how to use it appropriately and really lean into what works for you, that can be major. And that doesn't mean I can't, raise things up, shake some trees when I need to really advocate and champion. But I looked at a book called Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. And that was something that really resonated with me in the recent times.
Tracy, what would you like to add?
That's awesome. So how I gained and am continuing to gain my voice, I think it's kind of a way back, but when I was little, my dad was in the military and we traveled a lot. So we moved from Mississippi to Germany. That was our first duty station. And the kids would tease me because I had this accent. And so I would come home crying. And one day my dad was like, you have to find your own voice. You have to be okay with who you are, being settled with where you come from and being proud of that. And so that has really set with me over the years. And it's interesting, you find your voice as a leader, you find your voice as a wife, as a mother, and as a friend. And so there's so many spaces that you really navigate that. And in the last couple of years, becoming a mother of Black children and then moving into areas where we are not so populated, I'm really trying to teach my children to own and gain their voice and being okay with that. Times have changed, and just putting myself in different spaces such as this and being okay with learning from others to know that my voice is okay and that our voices are okay is really where I'm leaning into more. And I think since I know 40 is not old, but I've leaned over into 40 a little bit more. And so I'm okay being confident with like what I do have to say is important. And I think that's where we tend to shy back as we don't own who we are and what we have to say and think it's important. But it is important to someone else. So.
Thanks. I appreciate all of you sharing. I mean, some of the themes I heard were that, teams and friends and families and mentors and coaches, they all have played a huge role. So I want us to think about that everyone on this call today is continuing to make an impact in other people's lives, whether it is a quote that you share, a story you share, some guidance you share. It can really make a huge difference. So thank you for sharing all of your amazing stories around that.
And
okay.
Jen, just to add, I wanted to say, you were the one that actually, you probably don't even realize this, made this big impact on focusing on strength. You recommended a book for me and I dove right in and it was life-changing. So thank you.
Thanks for sharing that. And I think that, Terry was able to talk about those strengths and how she uses those every single day. And we all know that when we focus on the positive, we're going to be more creative. We're going to be more engaged. We're going to enjoy what we do more. So it's awesome that all of us have found those people that can continue to help guide us. Okay. So I know some of you have mentioned this, but I wanted to see if I could dig a little bit further into who has played a role in helping you claim your confidence. So Tracy, I know you mentioned your father had a huge impact when you were younger in doing this. Wanted to see if you all could share some additional folks in your lives who has played a role or is continuing to play a role in helping you claim your confidence.
Yeah, I can start. Not only was it my father, but it's the women that came before me that laid the foundation that led our families to
Do we still have you, Tracy?
I apologize. I'm in the hospital, so there was an overhead going off. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
but just being able to gain the ability to speak for our families, to speak for ourselves, and for the generations that come before us, right? Like, I grew up in church, and so those women really surrounded me. When my parents divorced, my mom lost a child. She was really distant. And so these women really rallied around me to really develop me into the woman that I am today. And I think from my strengths of being inspirational and being a developer, that is the goal that I have. Also for myself, when I reach the young women at my daughter's cheer gyms or any of the women that I lead, and even then, if someone's willing to listen, I have something to say, then those are the opportunities I kind of lean into. And my mom didn't take the ability to utilize her voice for herself, especially in a healthcare situation. And so I have just really leaned into that as well.
Thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing. I know, as everyone can probably see behind me, I have a saying back there that says, pray hardest when it's hardest to pray. So thanks for sharing some of those roots, Tracy, too, of growing up in the church and how, folks were able to surround you. Sometimes even probably total strangers that would come and make an impact into your life. So thank you for sharing.
Jen, for me also, it goes back to my childhood, like Tracy did. My father was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when I was 9 years old, and he had the progressively worsening kind. So like over the next 30 years, I would say he went from like a limp to a walker to a wheelchair, and then just, stayed in bed most of his time. So there were definitely concerns, with my mom and family around, like, is he going to maintain, his mental health and his zest for life, things like that. But something actually amazing happened in front of our eyes. So as my dad's like geographical radius got smaller and smaller, his influence actually got bigger. Every day someone would stop by our house, check in on him, ask him for his advice, just share their struggles. And he would give them advice sometimes. He'd insert humor into everything, or, just nod and be supportive. Excuse me. And no matter what, folks just seem to leave happier and more content after they spend some time with him. We'd often joke with my dad, like he should start charging for his life coaching business, which is $1 billion industry right now. But all that to say, my dad showed me through his quiet confidence that you don't need to be a leader of a large team, right? You don't even need to have a job, but you can make a positive impact in people's lives. And it was pretty powerful to just learn by example. And I'll just add one more thing. As this happened, my mom became superwoman of our family, right? She supported us financially, put us through college, grad school, all of it, and set us up to be successful. And just having those role models, I think really helped me out.
Thank you for sharing, Anise. I think that's a very powerful story. And I'm sure many people on this call can relate to some of those life experiences that have shaped them and built their confidence. Stephanie.
Thanks, Jen. So someone that's really helped me build my confidence when I was newer in my leadership role, I had the privilege, my first chief nurse, and this was even when I was still at the bedside in a clinical nurse capacity and serving on different committees as a staff nurse, really took me aside, and it felt like gave me a crash course, and we still stay in touch on leadership, but it was really about trying to bust self-doubt and trying to help with me feeling empowered. And her different tactics and strategies have really helped me try to pass that on to my team members, my colleagues. And I remember one time sitting in her office and making just kind of an offhand comment, like, you have to fake it till you make it. And she stopped dead in her tracks and was like, no. Do not buy into that. You've already made it. You can make it. You don't have to fake anything. And obviously, I know I'm not saying like never fake it till you make it, but I think it was a really nice kind of lesson learned or wake up call that you have all the right tools and tactics. You just have to figure out how to leverage them. Another piece is I had the privilege to work with a coach in the past, and we didn't so much as focus than on confidence, but we focused a lot on courage. And for me, when I have courage, I have more confidence. And I'm sure that's the same for my colleagues here on the call, but I didn't necessarily equate or think about it until I did some kind of soul searching and some exercises, and I'm still a work in progress, still trying to be more courageous. But going through some of that, having those really intimate conversations about when I wasn't courageous, where I can be courageous, and when I was, has been really helpful to me.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think that self-reflection, you know, Bobby put a pretty powerful story in the chat as well, of when she used courage to be able to have a conversation that, you know, it takes courage and it takes confidence to be able to lean into that. So thanks for sharing. Terry.
Yeah, so first, let me just say, throughout my tenure in this organization has provided so much professional coaching, mentoring, and, you know, professional development. But as I was reflecting on this, I thought of one situation. So throughout my career, about 30 plus years of it has been really focused on claims operations and application support. There was a job that opened up, which I'm currently in today, and it piqued my interest because we were kind of on autopilot in my current role. Things were running well. And I went to Sharon Rudnick, who was no longer here, but she's a senior vice president. And I was like, oh, Sharon, I don't know if I can do this, but, you know, I really want to change. And, you know, just kind of crying about like, oh, I can't do this. And she stopped and looked at me and she's like, you really don't know how good you are. Like almost mad at me, like to shake me up a little bit, just to be like, you know, and she gave me several examples of, look at all of the accomplishments you made. This is just another opening, you know, to your career for you to figure out the complex problems that you love to solve. So I went for the position. I received the position. I've been in it just a little over six years now, and built really great technical teams. And it was just, it really lifted me up to kind of move into that next level.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I think Terry's story tells a lot of like courage to even have the conversation with Sharon, you know, because sometimes people look at something and they don't even have the courage or the confidence to have a conversation with someone inside or outside the organization. And what a changer, right? Like what a life changer for Terry, what a life changer for Advocate as an organization, that we've been blessed with her leadership in that role. So thanks for sharing. Okay. Another question. Was there a significant experience in your life in which you knew you wanted to make a difference as a female? So I shared a little bit of, you know, my story of when I was a junior in high school, when I heard Gloria Steinem, and I feel like she helped me understand the importance that I play and paving the way for myself. And I was 17 years old, hadn't even gone to college, but really understood that I played a huge role in making that happen. And so we just wanted to see if any of you all have just a significant experience in your life where you knew you wanted to make a difference as a female leader. Stephanie.
I can start us off. So just so our audience knows, we did get these questions ahead of time, and this one was really hard for me because I can pinpoint exactly when I wanted to be a nurse and why. I can't pinpoint exactly when leadership made sense. And so I really had to do some reflection, and I had some really great leaders and mentors that guided me down this path and continue to do so today. But over the past few years, I've had the opportunity to branch out of my organization and take on leadership roles externally. So Jen mentioned I'm in Atlanta today. I have the really wonderful privilege to serve on an international board of nursing. I was elected as a board of directors. I just was reelected for the second time. And really that allows me to shape practice throughout my specialty. And that was something that's been such a game changer for me. I've been able to make so many wonderful connections, but really improve the profession, make recommendations that will guide just not tomorrow, but years down the road, hopefully. And I stepped out of that meeting to come here today. So what a day for me. I feel like I'm on cloud 9. But for me, it's been more like, wow, I can make a difference at my organizational level, but how can I take these great learnings, this wonderful geographical footprint, the communities and patients we serve, and how can I share that at a larger scale? So just wanted to shed light. And I've also tried to take that same approach at a local level. So how can I step away from my nursing hat, but utilize that experience and talents to help serve my community, to help really look at health equity opportunities or health policy considerations. So that's something newer for me, but trying to make connections within my town, within my county, and then even beyond, more using my nurse lens and leadership perspective, but a little bit differently. So it doesn't really answer your question, but at least kind of shares how I've utilized some of that to branch out a bit.
Yeah. No, I love how you use that. Your platform was nursing, right? And who knew when you became a nurse of the different areas that you were going to get exposed to? It's a little bit like when we're talking about quotes, it's a little bit like a quote that I'm reminded of from Coach K, who coaches the Duke basketball team. And he says, first, I'm a leader. I just happen to be a leader who coaches basketball. And I think it's so important for you to understand, for us to understand even Stephanie's story, that she started out as nursing but has given her so much more of a platform to be able to engage and influence other leaders and other folks in and outside of our organization, in and outside of our country. So thanks for that. Anise.
My stage is a little smaller, Jen. When I think back and I was reflecting on this question, I think for me, things changed, or maybe the stakes got higher once I became a mom. The boys 9 and 6, and through their as they were born and early in their life, I started questioning, right, like reflecting on what world do I want to raise my kids in. Also now having some influence over the next generation, right? What values do I want to instill in these little boys? Can they be kind and genuine and comfortable in their own skin? And then I think the hardest day to day is just being a role model for them, because some days it is hard. I don't have patience necessarily to help them with their homework, but then I think back to, okay, this is the next generation. I have to be better. So that's inspired me.
Such a powerful story. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think as we talk about some of our experiences and some of our wins and some of the power we feel, I think it's also good to hear. Sometimes we do feel defeated, or we do have obstacles that we have to get through. And we carry more than, or we wear more than one hat, right? We maybe wear a hat as a leader or as a female. We also wear a hat as a mom, as a partner, as so many different areas. So I'm so glad that you brought that, because I'm sure many people listening today can resonate with some of those same struggles that, as a mom, as a community member, someone who's leading things. Sometimes our energy gets low and we need support. Tracy.
Yes, so kind of between Stephanie and Anise, like Stephanie said, we got the questions ahead of time, and I did do a lot of reflection. And I think the most significant experience was, October 27, 2011, when I brought our first child into this world, and it was a boy. And I didn't know until after my third child, the experience that I had with my first child, that someone was there holding their voice for me, and they spoke up for my son. And realizing that that was the platform that I had to stand in the rest of my life, like from now until I die, that I am going to be the voice for my children, for the next generation, and not just the children in my household, but the children that my children touch and they see. And so when I'm at the cheer gym, or if I'm at the basketball gym, and those kids come to our house, and what's happening in my house will always be an influence for them. And that was the same in my life, seeing my life repeat over. I'm being the one to be able to give to someone else's child as someone else's parent gave to me is I mean, we're setting them up to be the next leaders in our positions as we move out of the way. So I think that was probably one of my most significant. And then I think about now, as I've moved here, recruited to come to Green Bay, Wisconsin, having the opportunity to sit on a board of directors for CASA here in Green Bay and being a voice for those children that have no one to have a voice for them. And as we get through 18, sometimes even in life, we think once our kids hit 18, they're out of here. But that's not it. Like it's a different level of how we are inspiring them. And so having the ability to have, you know, that stage and platform is pretty significant and outstanding that we'll take on to the next generation and beyond.
Really powerful. I have one going to college next year. So that, you mean it's not over, Tracy? Like after he goes to college, it's not over?
It's never over.
Never over. And I'm blessed because of that. Terry, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, for me, early in my leadership, like, you know, there's leading work and then there's leading people. And just realizing the positive impacts that you have on your team that you may not even realize. And I'll give an example, and this is really early on in my career. I had a teammate that worked for me in the eligibility department doing data entry. He graduated from DeVry, and he's like, I can't get a job anywhere. Like, I have this degree, I can't get a job anywhere. So I reached out to my contacts in IT, Kevin Cass at the time, I think, and I said, hey, I have this guy. He really, you know, needs some exposure. Let's job share. Let me give him to you for 2 days a week. Buy before you, you know, try before you buy. Probably broke every HR rule out there, but he was in agreement, and we did that for a couple of months. And it ended up that this teammate got the job, and he still works for AAH, and he's a senior field service person. So it was very, I would say, it held a special place in my heart that I was able to, you know, push that through. And I do that today with all my teams. If someone needs help with, you know, they want to reach out and do something, I'm their advocate to kind of lead them through that.
I love it, Terry. I hear so much influence in there where you have the ability to be a voice for someone else, and you have the platform. So sometimes we have platforms for other people, and that is how we can use our influence and really gain a lot of confidence in that way as well. So we have about 3 more minutes before we go to the Q&A section of our time together. So I'm going to ask one last question, because I feel like you all have done a fabulous job of talking about women that have helped you tell your story, some women of the past. So I actually want to go to our last question, and that is, how can your Advocate Health colleagues who are not women be allies for you? So how would you like to tell the audience of how they can continue? Because I think, Terry, your story is really powerful about how you were an ally to someone that was a male, and he was able to make a huge difference in the organization. So would love to hear your stories of how our Advocate Health colleagues who are not women can continue to be allies for all of you. Stephanie, we'll start with you.
Thanks, Jen. I would just say seek to understand and actively listen. See if there is opportunity, similar to like we just heard Terry talk about, but making connections. Back in nursing school and in college, I had a really close friend who was my equal. We were nursing school partners, and he went on to do really great things. And I remember he told me once, like, well, that's great that you have these aspirations, but you're never going to leave. You're never going to leave the hospital that you work at. You worked there in college. You're going to stay there. And honestly, that was a very anti-ally thing to say, and it's really drove me. So that's not a good thing, but it's something that I feel like what a missed opportunity. That could have been, you know, a great friend helping out and sharing some of his tips and tricks along the way, but instead it fueled me in a very different way. So just sharing, I had the opportunity to share that story with some of my colleagues in a leadership cohort, and they were like, wow, you should share that more often. So I don't know if it resonated, but don't do that, and really listen, see how you can champion others.
I love it. It could be what not to do.
Yeah.
Right? That could be a whole other question for
a whole other series, Ashley.
whole other series, right? Anise.
So I was gonna say, Jen, that there have been so much data and around women in leadership. There have been studies that have shown that
I think we lost Anise, so we'll come back to her when she's able to jump back on. So Tracy, anything you want to share?
I just think we just have, Anise is back on. I'll let her finish.
So sorry, I don't know what happened. So no, I was just saying, Jen, that studies have shown that companies with the most gender diverse executive leadership teams outperform their competitors by 21%, right? And I think the most alarming thing that I read was that success and likability are positively correlated in men and negatively correlated in women. And it's going to take a whole workforce, probably a whole generation to break this type of conditioning. So encourage everyone to, be inclusive, support the women leaders, colleagues, just women in your lives. And I'll just say one thing. If someone seems to not belong in a room or hasn't found their belonging yet, pull up a chair for them, right? Invite them into the conversation. A little bit will go a long way.
Love that. Multiple times today, you guys have given me chills, all of you. So as I'm writing things down, I'm just taken back by just such great advice from all of you. Tracy.
Yes, really well said, Anise. I think it just goes across the board in any situation. Know that we all have a voice. It's not just the females, the males, the Black, the white, the other diversities, but we're all here as humans to do one thing, and that's, in this industry, it's to care for our patients. And so if we get out of our own way, it gives us the ability to listen to what someone else has to say, because a lot of times we've already formulated our opinion or our answer or our thought of what we're going to say to what someone else is saying in the room. When we just kind of lean into it, I know I've said that a lot, but we really do have to lean into everyone's opinions and what they have to say in order for us to be one voice for the organization.
Tracy, I love that. And I think lean in looks differently for everyone. We heard that Stephanie talked about how she used to think she had to lean in and be, louder and more had more of a presence. And she really identified that her leaning in is going to be quieter than other people's. And how amazing is that? Terry talked about how she's going to lean in with her strengths of a ranger and activator. And she celebrates that she understands now what the strengths that she brings to the table. So she's able to lean in with those. So I love that we're all able to share that leaning in is going to look differently for everyone because of the value, the diversity that we bring. So thanks for sharing that. Terry, anything you want to comment on how your advocate health colleagues who are not women can continue to be allies or can be allies for you?
I mean, there's not much to add. There was so many beautiful comments already. I mean, I work behind the scenes a lot and I'm not the most polished speaker. So just realizing that there's a lot more to me and others that may not be in that light of presentation, so on and so forth, is that, there are strengths besides being, a presenter.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I'm going to segue into our question time. So Ashley, Erica, any questions that you're seeing come in from the chat that we want to call out for our panel?
Hello, thank you, Jennifer. There was one regarding mentorship. And so the question was specifically, can you share how to go about finding a female mentor for leadership within the organization?
Yeah, ladies, do you want to share any opportunities that you have taken to be able to find a mentor in the organization? I help lead our mentoring, programmatic mentoring, so I can share that there is a difference between programmatic mentoring that we do within the organization and then also what I call like organic mentoring. And some of our ladies on the panel may have an opportunity to share their the way that they've been able to obtain kind of organic mentors throughout their career.
I'll start. Some of it starts with just being able to, I'm a networker and I'm not afraid to reach out. There have been, just when I started last year, there was a lot of courses that you go through. There's a lot of opportunities to meet a lot of women. And so like Jen and Ashley and Dayla, I've reached out. I'd see someone that was speaking and I'd say, oh, I really enjoyed speaking to you. Do you think you would have time to spend time with me? Know that you're pouring into yourself and it is a value added situation. So reach out. There's also, you can find like in your local areas, there's always some type of like organizations that you could be a part of and find women that are of such that may interest you. But, you know, and mentors don't always last a lifetime. I believe that people are in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And so I have taken nuggets and gained things from other women that I have encountered with. Because I'm not afraid to sit and have a conversation. I am afraid to sit and speak as we have done today, but I think we've made it through. But just being able to reach out, and if someone doesn't respond, there's always someone else out there that's willing to do it. Please reach out to any of us that have spoken today. I mean, I'm going to speak for us, but I think we'd be happy to mentor with whomever is asking the question.
Yeah, either that or you can put them in contact with someone. You can be their ally and put them in contact with someone. So that's always wonderful, as well as, you know, you may not be the mentor, but you may have someone that knows someone that would be a great mentor for you. So thanks for sharing, Tracy. Any other thoughts, Steph?
I was just going to say, Jen, you've even done that for me where you've saw some folks and you're like, oh, I think they'd be a great connector for Stephanie, me. And said, hey, would you be willing to meet offline with this person? And that was very just by happenstance. So it doesn't always have to be you being the mentee. It could also flip-flop, and there's such rich learning on either side. And I think, as Tracy said, you know, relationships evolve depending on different pieces. So there may be times when you're the mentee, but then that reciprocates and you can really gain insight and feedback and perspective from your counterpart. So
any other thoughts, Terry, Anise, anything on that question?
I would say just, you know, you have to not be afraid to show your vulnerability and ask questions, right? There are so many people that are willing to help you, and they're not going to take it as you're weak or whatnot. There are so many great leaders out there that are willing to take the time, you know, willing to help. And it's just a matter of taking the first step of reaching out to folks.
That was great, Jen. Nothing to add.
Excellent, excellent. Looks like we have one final question that we can answer. And the question is more around, oh, and also just one thing I wanted to add on the mentoring. We do have a mentoring toolkit in our leadership development area that we can point you to as well. So we'll make sure that you have the link to be able to obtain the mentoring toolkit that we do have. Okay. So here's the question. Someone's asking, they'd love to hear if any of you felt that you were at a crossroads in your career. You felt like you were at like a plateau or at some point where you wanted to get to that next level or a new challenge. And did you have any learnings or advice to share on that decision that you made? So maybe possibly a time where maybe you felt a little defeated or felt a little deflated, and and you were able to overcome that and get to that next level, or are doing that now, the next level or the next challenge for your career?
I can go or start. So when I came to Advocate Health 6 years ago, I had only worked at 2 other places. So one was a grocery store in high school. And then, as I mentioned, from college through quite some time, I was at one organization and had the opportunity to really work in many different roles, non-nursing and nursing, and then into leadership and more of a regional capacity. And I knew there wasn't what I had wanted, wouldn't necessarily be available. And if it would be, it was going to take some time. And there was a great opportunity at the time at Lutheran. That's where I finished my grad studies and my preceptorship and had a really fantastic practicum rotation, but it wasn't an equal type of role. At the time, I was in a regional director type of role, had wonderful exposure, wonderful opportunities, but I knew, like I said, there wasn't a lot to progress at that current time within that former organization. So I talked with my husband, and we were able to make the decision, and obviously sometimes there's finances that come into that and other different pieces, but I really felt if I could take a step back, because it was a manager role, it might allow me more growth in the long run. And it did, because here I am. I had the opportunity to evolve in different roles at Lutheran. For any of my Lutheran folks on the call, I had lots of great colleagues and mentors there, still do, and now more in the system or regional role. So I think we get stuck that it has to be this step and kind of traditional hierarchy type of thing, and it doesn't at all. And if it wasn't for that major change, I wouldn't have had these great experiences that I've had over the past 6 years.
Yeah, I love that you shared that. You were able to be humble and be vulnerable and say, this feels right to me, feels right in my gut. And that's usually a great thing to go with. I think sometimes we feel like we always have to be moving up, and it's more about what's the best thing for our life experiences. Tracy, do you want to share anything from moving from California to Wisconsin?
Yes, that was a midlife crisis. The pandemic really kind of shook me at my core, and I felt like I was stagnant, and I felt like I needed to birth something bigger. And I think a lot of that came with reflection and really listening to myself, decreasing the white noise of what everyone else thought I should be doing, but really internalizing and making the best decision for what was going to be best, not just for me, but for my family, for my children, what opportunities I would have to reach out into. And so moving here was a huge deal. And the last year and a half is, sometimes when we make moves, kind of what Stephanie was speaking to, is we make moves and we think that it just changes the trajectory of things, but there were still things I needed to deal with as a woman and as a leader, to really formulate who I was going to be in this next transition of my life, and accepting that transition and like recognizing that it truly was like this, like something big was happening, and being okay with not being like perfect at everything, like Terry had spoken about before. Like we always we feel like we have to be 17 steps ahead of the next person as a man, or whatever the comparison is for us. But really just being like, I'm okay right where I am, and the influence is going to happen, and whatever this is that needs to birth inside of me will happen. So yeah, it took some reflection and work, but here I am. If I can, Jen, I want to say this one last thing too is, we women are the backbone of our economy, of our family. We are the future of what is to come. And everyone's story is just as important as anyone else's, and we all have one. So it's important to speak that story and speak it loud. Have a strong voice. Don't be afraid to use your voice, your thoughts, your opinions, your ideas, because they're just as important. And when we speak with boldness and purpose, have courage, be confident, and always be true to yourself. Live your life fearlessly, and your voice has great power. And just remember that no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Very powerful, Tracy. Thank you for sharing that. And I think your answer was a great example about how you didn't let borders hold you back. And I know for me at age 40 is when I decided I actually knew what I wanted to do for a living and went back to grad school with 2 little kids in tow. So you can do it. So don't let borders, don't let some of those things like, oh, I'm too old to do this, or I don't have the capacity to do it. We'll find a way to get that done. Terry, Anise, anything you want to offer up as to answer that question in terms of obstacles or challenges that you were able to overcome?
Yeah, well, I spoke to it a little bit about my change. So I started off as a receptionist and I moved, fast forward 30 years later, all I've done was manage care operations. To move to that much, much more technical role, you have to have the courage to do that. And, if you want that change, again, it make the plunge. What's the worst that can happen? And it's really just about really understanding what makes you tick and how you want to progress in your career. But it's scary. I mean, I will tell you, I was scared for the first year of taking over the new position, but you use your skills and you figure it out and things come together. So if you're looking for that change, go for it, ladies.
Yeah. And guess what? We're going to fail. If we had another hour, we could talk about some things we did try and we failed at, and it made us stronger for those failures. So I love that as well, as to talk about those things. And
I was just going to say to Terry, if it's not scary, then why are we doing it, right? I think there's a whole piece on risk taking and really pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And if you're not scared a little, then you might be losing out on lots of other opportunities and connections. So kind of remind yourself of that as well.
Anise, any lasting words of to answer that question around challenges or obstacles, or maybe when you felt like you had hit a plateau and how you were able to overcome that?
I don't know about lasting, Jen, but I started, I mentioned 20 years ago, this was meant to be a summer job for me until I found a job. And yet here I am, right? I think I always had that spirit to learn more. And as long as I was working on interesting things, that was very satisfying for me. And truly, it was the leaders that I worked with and mentors and sponsors that pushed me ahead in this journey. So I am really so lucky. I can't think back on one obstacle that, felt like an obstacle, frankly, in the last 20 years. So I would just say, surround yourself with folks who support you. And when you focus on your strengths, the path of least resistance will show up, and you just have to have the courage to take the step.
Thank you. Thank you. And I want to thank you all for participating today. I'm going to hand it back over to Ashley. I think Ashley is going to close us out and move us forward. Thanks, Ashley.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jen. Thank you to all of you wonderful leaders for sharing your insight and your perspective, and just with great candor. I've learned a lot. There's a lot I'll be reflecting on, so I'm so glad we record these. There was questions in the chat about that earlier. Yes, we do record all of the sessions. So thank you so much to each and every one of you for being here. I want to remind you that we have some additional resources on our Women's History Month website that's been shared in the chat, as well as we really want you to complete the survey. We are continuing to adapt this series, what we're learning from you all. Every bit of feedback matters. Also, we want to invite you to register for our next Who We Are series. This is actually a sub-series called How We Celebrate. So we're doing a spring edition where we will really highlight our spiritual diversity. And so we invite you to that. And then finally, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to email us at inclusion@ah.org. It's really a great resource to just kind of navigate all things DE&I here at Advocate Health. But I want to, again, just thank you all so much for being here. The panelists, thank you for all your time. This takes a lot to prepare for something like this, to sacrifice your time. Jen, thank you for your moderation. And I want to thank Bobby as well. I'm not sure if she's still on, but for right away, as soon as we reached out, she said yes to supporting this. And so I'm so grateful to each and every one of you. I did see an additional question in the chat. I grabbed it and I will ask that to our panelists and see if we can get some responses. I saw Tracy was able to respond in the chat as well. But thank you all again for being here.